we have some understanding of the structure of what HTML looks like, let's go ahead and write some HTML of our own. And we're actually going to be using an online code editor. So you don't need to worry about downloading any software. You just go to this website, jsbin.com. I'm going to recommend you make an account and log in because that way you can save your work and come back to it later. But in any case, when you open up a new JSBin file, this is what you'll see. You might see something like this, JavaScript or some CSS tab, but we can get rid of those tabs for now. And really, I just want to focus on the HTML tab and the output. So the output here is, it's pretty neat on JSBin. It kind of runs on the fly. So anytime you add something to your HTML, you'll see it over in the output. So a really great tool just to kind of get up and get started writing some simple HTML. And you'll notice that there are some tags that we've already identified here. Right? So even if I go create a new file here, new JSBin, and let me get rid of that here. So you can see that it has the doc type HTML, and it has the opening HTML. It has a head element. It has this UTF-8 thing. This meta name viewport, if you're curious, you can Google it. Essentially, it just makes it easier to create more mobile-ready code, mobile-responsive code. Don't really need to worry about that right now. But notice there's a title, and you know what? For the first thing we do, why don't we change this title? Notice up here that the title is located up at the top of my tab here, JSBin. I can change that. Right? So let's change this to say my cool site, for example. Okay, so once that updates, it actually updates it on the fly here in JSBin. So now it's updated to say my cool site. So that's how you can update your title. And other than that, there's nothing showing in our output. So why is that? Well, we don't have anything in the body of our HTML. It's just empty. So it's actually showing exactly what we told it to show, which is nothing here. You can start to type stuff in here and see what happens. So hello, this is a test. Let's see what happens. You can see it just interprets it as text and it puts it up there. Now we didn't use any markup, right? We didn't use any tags. We just put text as is. Pretty uncommon to see this. Usually for pretty much any element, you want to wrap it in, any text, you want to wrap it in some kind of element. So this would probably go into a paragraph tag, right? So let's try to write our first paragraph tag. We'll open it up, open P, and then tip that I always try to recommend is to always close your tags off right away. So I'm going to close it, because if you forget to close it, it could cause problems down the line. Your page won't render how you expect it to render. Maybe it won't render at all. You can run into all kinds of weird difficulties if you forget to close off your tags. In any case, let's write our first paragraph element. So let's write in here. Let's see what the output gives us. So we'll say my name is Chris. Okay, cool. So it looks pretty much the same as the text we just had, except now we've wrapped it in these p tags, and this has become an element, right? So this whole thing, we call it an element. Now if we write some more text, for example, welcome to my site, well, this is outside the bounds of this p tag, right? So it just kind of creates a separate paragraph here. Anything that's not wrapped in this p tag is kind of put on a separate line. We should also explicitly wrap this in a p tag, so I'll do that and I'll close it. And there we go. We have two paragraphs here separated out and marked up nicely, and the browser is interpreting it for us. Another way you might see elements written out is you might have space in between the elements. For example, let's get rid of this one. And you might see it like this. So you have an opening tag, then you have some text, and then you have a closing tag. And recall when I said that the browser, for the most part, just ignores white space in the HTML. So even though there's a bunch of white space here, it just ignores that. So it's common to see it written this way, especially if you have kind of a long sentence here. For example, welcome to my site. Very happy to have you. This is pretty long, right? So if we had this on one line, it starts to get a little bit too long. We kind of have to start to scroll over, especially if we start to shrink our window. Now, I am zoomed in a bit, so the text is bigger than it might be on your screen. But this is kind of unpleasant to have to develop with. So we can solve this. We can start to enter new lines like so. Welcome to my site. Very happy to have you. Put this on a separate line. And you can see that it's still formatted in a nice way in the actual final representation. If you did want to put explicit line breaks, hey, that's totally possible. Maybe one thing you could do is, well, this is one paragraph, and then this is a separate paragraph, for example. And really, I would encourage you to kind of tinker around, see if you can get it to flow how you want it to flow, keeping in mind that it will ignore white space if it's all within the same kind of paragraph tag. And paragraph is just one of many tags out there. And you shouldn't expect to have an encyclopedic knowledge of all the tags, but you should be familiar with some of the most commonly used ones. P is used all the time because it's an easy way to kind of separate out a paragraph from other portions of your site. Another one that's common is a header tag. And that, as you can imagine, starts with an H, and then it takes a number afterwards. So there's actually 6 different sizes of headers, starting with the biggest one, which is an H1. So you can think of that as, think of it as you probably want to use that once somewhere on your page as kind of the big attention-grabbing header. Let's see what that looks like. So we'll open one up, H1, right? And then I'll close it right away so that I don't forget. Notice that my page was going all crazy because I didn't have a closing H1 anywhere. So it's just making it all really big. But I'm going to close my H1, and now I can put whatever text I want in here. So let's say I wanted my big attention-grabbing header to say something like HTML is cool, for example. Right, so notice it kind of applies some default styling and makes it bold and big. So that's the point of an H1. It's kind of descriptive in a way, right? It's sort of semantic in that it describes what it's doing. It's a header, size 1. Then let's say you wanted some kind of subheader. So you want one that's slightly smaller to kind of sit underneath that H1. How would you do that? Well, that one, it actually goes H2. So this is the second biggest header. In this one, your subheader would be like, if it's a news story, I kind of like to think of it as sort of a newspaper. So this is like your headline. Whoops, this is like your headline, and then you have your lead, right? The little summary of your story. So I am learning HTML with a smiley face, right? It's similar in that it's big and it's kind of made more bold, but it is a little bit smaller than the H1. What about the others? Well, there's a couple other ones. It goes H3 through H6. So if we want to see what those look like, I am size H3 / H3, right? And it's just going to get progressively smaller. I am size H4. I'd say it's a bit more rare to use, H3 through H6, but they are available. So I am size H6, H5 rather. And finally H6, I am size H6. Right, so they get progressively smaller and smaller. And H6 is actually smaller than kind of the default paragraph, as you can see. Same with H5. H4, just by my naked eye, looks about the same size as this paragraph. But in any case, you can see that they're kind of in descending order. So H1 is the biggest, H6 is the smallest. And I would encourage you to use these where appropriate. So again, if you do have a big, bold headline you need to outline, would probably recommend an H1 for that. If you need kind of a subheader, maybe an H2 or an H3. And again, it is a bit more rare to see H4, H5, or H6, but they are available, so use them if you want. It's just a bit more rare to see them out in the wild. Another thing I'd like to mention is that you can have nested elements. And we've actually seen that already, right? So within the body here, we have a whole bunch of nested elements, but it can go even further than that. So let's say you wanted to put some kind of emphasis somewhere inside your paragraph, right? So here I say, my name is Chris, and I really wanted to emphasize the fact that this is my name. Is there some kind of element or tag that I can use to do so? And yeah, there sure is. So we can use an element called strong. And I'll open it here, and then I didn't close it anywhere. So that's something you need to remember. You need to close this one, because if I put another paragraph down here, test paragraph, and close that one, right, this is the kind of side effect that can happen if you forget to close off your tag. So it's applying strong, which as you can see just kind of makes it bold for everything after this until I come in and close my strong. So that's another reason I recommend just kind of always closing them right off the bat. In any case, a little bit of a tangent there. So you can use these strong tags, and you can see it's actually nested inside this paragraph element. So opening p tag, closing p tag, we have our text. We have another tag here, opening and closing tag, and we are emphasizing this piece right here by using the strong tag. Again, it's kind of semantic in that it's describing what it's doing. It's strong, it's putting a strong emphasis on this particular word. You can put as many words as you want in here. So blah, blah, blah. You can see it's all going to get emphasized, and then we can continue our paragraph after that. Continuation of paragraph. Right, so only this part that's in these strong tags is styled in that way. Right, otherwise we just continue and then we close off our paragraph over here. Right, so I'll get rid of that actually, and I'll leave continuation of paragraph in there. In addition to strong, there's a bunch of other ones we can use. For example, there's one called EM for emphasis. As you can see, this kind of has the effect of causing it to become italicized. And again, it's a bit descriptive in terms of what it's doing. It's semantic. It's saying, okay, EM, that stands for emphasis or emphasize. So I'm really going to emphasize this part right here. And we can expand it out. So if we want to emphasize all the way to over here, we can do that. Right, so all kinds of neat tricks you can do. And again, I just encourage you to kind of tinker around with some of these tags to see if you can think up how you want your text to be displayed, and then see if you can write it using some HTML markup.